Camellya is here to save the world or whatever, but more importantly, she's here for a satisfying fight. With a unique playstyle that keeps her airborne more often than not, she can put down both bosses and large groups of enemies with relative ease. But this main damage dealer might not be for everyone for precisely the reasons that make her so good. Before we can answer whether you should pull for Camellya, we'll have to go over what she does. Camellya is a 5-star Havoc attribute sword user whose damage is largely considered basic attack damage. She has 3 modes: the white-haired normal mode, the red-haired blossom mode, and the even redder budding mode. Let's start with normal mode. In normal mode, she attacks as you'd expect, namely jumping around and slashing her sword at enemies. In a fun detail, she attaches a vine to her sword in order to extend her reach. Camellya's jump attack has her create a claw with which to crush the enemy. Also, she can do this. Normal mode is great for when you want to go toe-to-toe with more slippery opponents or are focusing on a single target. And while it's the mode you'll be doing all of your traversal in combat you'll probably want to change things up. Pressing the resonance skill button instantly lets Camellya enter Blossom mode, which suspends her from vines and greatly limits her movement. It's not impossible to move though. Dodging can actually push her in the direction you're trying to go. If you grapple first, you can enter Blossom mode even higher in the air. I'm not sure how that benefits you, but you can do it. While in Blossom mode, Camellya's stamina bar slowly ticks down, so tragically you can't hang out like this forever. But what you can do is have Camellya lash vines at enemies in a wide radius, dealing devastating AoE damage. Tower of Adversity is not ready for this level of destruction. The best part, or the worst part depending on who you ask, is she can do all this just by holding down the basic attack button. But that's not all. As long as she's spinning, she can parry just about any parryable attack. Who needs timing when you can just hold the basic attack button down? Don't get too comfortable though. Despite spinning like a Beyblade, she's not invincible, so pay attention and avoid non-blockable attacks so she doesn't get whacked like a piñata. Don't hesitate to whack the subscribe button though. The advantages of Blossom mode don't end there either. While suspended in midair, Camellya is impervious to many ground-based attacks. For example, she runs absolute rings about Phaley and Baringal, who can barely touch her. When she's filled the Concerto gauge, this thing down here that lets allies activate their intro skills and enables your on-field character to perform their outro skill, Camellya can consume it all to unleash a nuke called Ephemeral on her foes. When this attack is available, her resonance skill icon will be replaced with a new glowing icon. This is even more deadly than her liberation. On top of that, consuming Concerto to cast Ephemeral allows Camellya to change form again, this time into budding mode. She can consume her Forte gauge to unleash even more attacks. As for Camellya's resonance liberation,
entertain me!
It's just a cool looking attack that deals damage, but just like with Changli, it reflects her appearance depending on what mode she's in. Unlike Changli, however, you won't be penalized for using Camellya's liberation in any particular mode. My favorite thing about it is she can use it even when airborne, which is good because she spends so much time looming over her enemies. But where there's a Camellya banner, there's also a Red Spring banner. And while it provides a fairly substantial increase in damage for her specifically, it's not that useful for any character who came before. Although the increase in basic attack damage might be nice for some characters like Rover Havoc, the problem is that a huge chunk of its damage can only be triggered if the wielder consumes Concerto energy and then remains on field. At the time of Camellya's release, she's the only character capable of doing this. If you're looking for versatile 5-star weapons that go great with a range of characters, this one might not be for you. Camellya is greedy and wants as much field time to herself as she can get, so you'll want to give her some teammates that can enable her as much as possible. A healer is usually a given to take advantage of those tasty buffs, and the best option she has as of her release is Shorekeeper thanks to how well Stellar Realm meshes with Camellya, and pretty much everyone else. Verena or any other healer will do just fine too. But if you're looking to boost Camellya's damage as much as possible, be on the lookout for any character who buffs basic attack damage or havoc damage. Sanhua boosts basic attack damage with her outro skill and has an extremely fast rotation. This means that Sanhua can quickly max out her own Concerto gauge to prepare for that outro. The best part is that Sanhua is given as a free reward to every player. On the other hand, Danjin mains can make her work alongside Camellya too, as her outro skill buffs havoc damage. The downside is that Danjin's rotation is quite a bit longer. That said, Danjin herself does impressive damage in the hands of the right player, so your mileage may vary. I don't really like to dance with death though, so Sanhua will be my preferred pick. But with all that said and done, should you pull Camellya? Well, probably. Let's take a look at her pros and cons. You should pull Camellya if you're a new or returning player looking for an easy character who deals truckloads of damage. You struggle with the high amount of actions per minute or timing required for quick swap teams, and want a character who's a bit more relaxing to play. You already have the 5-star sword Emerald of Genesis, which is available to any player for free upon reaching Union level 45. You don't have access to many characters and want to take advantage of one of her best supports being a free 4-star character. Sanhua doesn't even need much investment to make use of what she can do for Camellya. You're having a hard time getting all 3 Doritos in each Tower of Adversity stage every fortnight, and want a character who will get the job done. And finally, get her if you want to disrespect bosses with cheesy strats like hovering above their attack radius and parrying them into another dimension. But while this may sound too good to be true for some, these very pros could be why some people dislike using Camellya. So you shouldn't pull Camellya if you love the quick swap playstyle. Camellya discourages quick swap as much as she can and will even exit Blossom mode if you swap her out. If you're the type of person who enjoys frenetic Chang-Li teams, she might not be for you. You don't like easy characters. Camellya's gameplay is fairly simple, so some players may actually feel bored when using her. And finally, you may not want to pull Camellya if you're feeling uncertain about her future and would rather spend your precious Astrites on a support character. As a main damage dealer, Camellya has to compete with every other main damage dealer in the game, so it's hard to say how long she'll feel this strong for. Free-to-play players and low spenders will struggle to get every single character, so make sure to try each one out before you commit to them. Every patch tends to have game modes where you can use rental characters, which in my experience is much more useful than the Ascended Aces trial that's available during a character's banner. But you should try that out too, especially since it provides some Astrites. If you're on the fence, try Camellya out in Depths of Elusive Realm or anywhere else you can get your hands on her. After all, that's the best way to figure out whether you're mesmerized by her aerial assault or bored by her somewhat one-note gameplay. But if you recently started playing, you might be wondering how to deal with enemies that look like this. So watch this video to find out how to beat special enemies even at level 1, and why you should consider doing so. The secret extra reason you might want to pull Camellya is if you love a woman who'll destroy you in a fight.